Okay, background on us as we talk about the topic of the day and why we're in any position to talk about this. If you don't know us, Springer Solutions Group, we're a boutique technology fundraising consulting firm. We run annual appeals for large organizations, multi-million dollar appeals. That's kind of how we got started in the world as fundraising consultants. We still do it. It's our bread and butter today. We then got really involved in Razor's Edge database administration, not because that's what we all wanted to be when we grow up, other than Austen, who was born knowing that she was destined for Razor's Edge fame. The rest of us kind of stumbled into it. All of our clients were using Razor's Edge, or many of them. Most of them needed help with it. They didn't know how to use it, or they're just struggling because it's a complicated program. So we started providing that service of helping people with Razor's Edge. And within 5 years, we became the largest user of Razor's Edge on the planet. So that's why we're even talking about this, is because we live and breathe inside of Razor's Edge, helping a whole bunch of organizations. That is our skill set. We're really good at it. When I say we, I mean Austen, I mean Stacy, Andy, Lauren, Rob, the whole team that we've got here. They're just great. As part of that, so we're largest user of Razor's Edge. We're running millions of records and managing constituents and keeping them clean and all that stuff. Stacy, 3 or 4 years ago now? When did this whole journey begin with automation?
I think it must have been 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
4 years ago this summer, I think it'll be.
Time flies. So Razor's Edge called Razor's Edge. Blackbaud, one of their high level people called and said, hey, we've got some cool stuff coming out with our API. You're gonna be able to do these things. You guys should look into it. And we did, and it blew our mind. So we started dabbling with fundraising automation. And nothing has ever been the same, right? Like, so it's that experience when you learn something like, oh my gosh, this is going to be big, like this changes everything. So we started helping our clients with fundraising automation, and we'll share some samples today. And then the phone started ringing, and folks who we weren't running their appeals were like, hey, we're fine on the fundraising consulting part, but we heard that you did XYZ automation, right? So like Field Museum, Nationwide Children's Hospital, the premier pediatric hospital in the country, right? House of Ruth, Archdiocese, tons of schools, coast to coast. We started building automations for them. And we did it so much that it actually turned into a division, a Springer Solutions Group and we call it a service. It's called Automate Genius. We're going to talk about a little bit today. That's how we got here. I feel like that was long-winded. Andy, was that like the longest wind-up that I've ever done?
It was like, let's just get into it, bro.
I know, right? No, I a couple more slides. All right, a little bit more about me before we actually give the people what they want. I was born in Carroll, Iowa, which if you have ties to Carroll, Iowa, please let us know. Stacy and Austen, I always love sharing this photo because a lot of the folks on this call are in this photo. This is the last BBCon. Anytime this group speaks on automation, everybody shows up, which makes me very proud. I'm so proud of what this team has done. So this is something that we know a lot about, people are interested in. Let's get right down to it. What is automation? I found the right book cover, guys. Shoemaker and the Elves. This is the best way to understand automation. I say that because I've been searching. We all thought of the book as Shoemaker and the Elves, and then when I went and looked online, they're all called The Elves and the Shoemaker, and it really threw me for a loop. I thought, has my whole life been a lie? I really thought the name of this book was Shoemaker and the Elves. If you've read this book, you understand automation. It was a shoemaker who had limited staff. Okay, he was overworked. He could never catch up, under-resourced. He had an inefficient system. He could not make the shoes. Life was not going well for the shoemaker. So what did he do? He just left the materials out on his workbench and he went to bed. Right? He said, I've had enough of this. I'm going to bed. Maybe something will happen. And something did happen. A bunch of little elves came along and they did his work for him. That is what fundraising automation is. But in this example, Stacy and Austen are the elves who climb onto your workbench or your workstation at night while you sleep and do all of your work for you magically. And then when you come in the morning, it's just there ready to go. Okay.
Not creepy.
No, it's not creepy at all. They don't, to my knowledge, they're not actually creeping into your workstation and doing your work for you, but it will feel like that, but in a good way and in a not creepy way at all. Austen, I want to start here because when we talked about this, I remember thinking, not a big deal. Like, you've done cooler stuff. And then we talked about it at BBCon and people went nuts. They went bonkers. They were throwing their chairs, like people were screaming, people were naming their kids after you. Like, it was a whole thing. So for higher ed, for K-12, for people on the call today, what is this automation that everybody's bonkers about around like graduation years? What is this thing?
So a lot of schools and universities keep track of like parent and grandparent, like grandchildren's years in the addresses and salutations. And I cannot express how difficult this is to do currently in database view. It's a lot of exports from multiple locations, data manipulation in Excel. Like, it's just so much effort to keep this one area of a record updated. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so automation to the rescue.
Yes. So what the automation can do is it will be notified when a new education record is added to a child's record. And using relationship records, it can go out and automatically update the addressee and salutations so that they are correct 100% of the time, anytime.
Awesome. I wish this is the only time that I wish that we're doing this on a real Zoom where you can see everybody's faces, because I know what people are doing right now. Yes, they're making the expression that Andy is. They're like, so many people
We
are
got some
like,
emoji users in there. They're giving it to us.
good. And that's the other thing. I hate doing it from a hotel because I don't have my screen, so I can never see like the chat and everything. I have no gauge of whether people like this or not. Okay, so that is super cool. I'm just gonna leave it there. If you have questions about this, make sure to hit the Q&A button. In the chat, lots of times people will comment and we usually lose track of like who asked what. If you hit the Q&A button, it'll show up on the screen. We're gonna have tons of time for Q&A towards the end of this one. Okay, so that's the first automation you should be doing if you're at a college, university, maybe even if you're at a high school. That's important. Okay, similarly, one that I personally thought was super boring and the world seemed to love. So as always, my instincts are dead wrong, and what the market actually wants are solutions that make sense to them. Stacy, tell me about this. What is a constituent code? Or actually, this might be Austen again. This is the hierarchy thing, right?
Yeah, so WebView, for whatever reason, has primary constituent codes that it's the first one listed on a record that's used for filters and lots of reports and Insight Designer and such. And that can be a little frustrating if you know that you want your codes to be in this hierarchy and they aren't. And this is also another area that database view does not help out with in any means. And how you do it is pretty drastic if you were to do it through database view. But what we can do in automation is basically resequence your constituent codes whenever new ones or new constituents are added to the system so that they are always in the correct hierarchy.
So this, I just realized when you were talking about this yesterday. So database view, you have all these constituent codes, and you can operate. It doesn't matter which one's number one, which one's number 7.
Yeah.
This happened because now that WebView is taking over, and eventually database view will get sunset, which is a whole other thing. It's important because a lot of stuff functions off of the number one constituent code.
Off of the first one listed on a record.
Okay, so we need a way to suddenly care deeply about the order of things when we didn't have to before. This automation just goes every night and looks through and just reorganizes it to however you want.
Yeah, it looks for new constituents and it looks for any constituent records that were updated that day.
Awesome. Okay, so number 2 example already, if you're at a college or university or K-12 and you're dealing with this stuff, already Austen has made your day. This is what's possible now. All the pains that you are encountering can be automated away. Let's keep it going. What about auto tagging? What are places doing? I think we have a client example of this. So Stacy, can we talk about Knox College? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are they doing? What does auto tagging mean? This is like the membership circle stuff, right?
Yep. So most of you probably have giving societies of some kind. This might be based on annual giving or lifetime giving or something. So in this example, we have a person who, hasn't made any gifts this year, so she's not a member of the 2025 giving circles. Prior to automation, what you would do is every time you needed to send an email or a letter to the Gold Society, you would have to run queries and add these codes.
That's all.
It was never up to date. It takes a while, right? So now what can happen is if a new gift gets added to the system, then Power Automate adds up all of their giving for the year and changes their attributes so that you at any moment can just say, okay, who are my Gold Society members? And they're already ready for you. You don't have to do all of those queries and imports and exports and all the things that you had to do back in the day to make those happen.
So I'm thinking of all of the colleges, universities that are like annual report time comes around. Boss says, hey, go ahead and run quick for me. It's due to the printer today. You go ahead and run that list of donor level tier things for you that you put together. Like hit the button to run that for me. And
you say that's going to take 3 days because I have to run 16 queries and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah.
And cleaned up to find out, okay, so this person was a gold member. If I'm even thinking Creighton, right? So like I'm a certain tier of like athletics, supporter, but like that may have been last year and I haven't done it this year. So I need to look when's the last time you paid. All that stuff is manual labor, which I'm only learning about as we get into this, right? And I'm sure most executive level directors also have no idea. They think that Razor's Edge just burst Blackbaud CRM or whatever is easier. So this automation just runs all the time. It just, whatever it is, you define the parameters for the gold circle and it's always looking and always updating. So it really is a point where you can hit the export button and the list is up to date no matter what.
Yep. It's awesome.
And I think one of the points, Nick, is, and I've talked to a lot of clients about this, right? So most often when this is happening, to Stacy's point, is like once a year and it's like 6 or 8 weeks before your donor recognition event where you're like, we need to know who to invite to this darn event, right? So they're going to get acknowledged in November for something that they may have done in April, right? This is an opportunity where, because it's updating, in a normal fashion, if you wanted to, one, it's going to be on the record, but even if you ran a simple, like, hey, like I just want a simple list of like anybody that's 2025 gold, you're going to get that and be able to thank them as it's happening in April and not have to wait until November when it's kind of like, well, afterthought. So, this really is kind of the savvy way to do that. The other thing that's important is if you have a lot of recurring donors, like their level may change throughout the course of the year, because whether it's several one-time gifts or the recurring gift, they might go from silver to gold to platinum, whatever that might be. We can set it so that it is either updating, right? So it will go from gold to the next level up, or it'll say 2025 Giving Circle gold and then 2025 Giving Circle platinum, or whatever, to kind of keep track. And if we can put like start and end dates or whatever if we need to on those kinds of things. But
I can't believe I'm so naive. I can't believe that stuff like this didn't exist, right? Just again, thinking through the example of like at Creighton, the finest college university on earth, so much of it is driven by like you only get tickets to see the soccer team play at home if you're at this circle. Like there's just so many different clubs and all of it is variable on it. I just die thinking that there's somebody's job is in an Excel to be like keeping track of all this stuff independently. It's got to be a nightmare. So, okay, sorry I kept us up on that one, but super cool automation. What about, Stacy, we always get a question about soft credits, right? So can it handle a soft credit I gave to my business, or maybe, my wife normally cuts a check, but then I cut the check this year. How does that work?
Yeah, so we can account for soft credits. We can include whatever your rules are about including pledges or payments. We can filter it by date. We can, whatever your rules are, yes, we can do. Do include soft credits, don't include soft credits if they're from this one guy. Whatever it is, we can do it. So.
Awesome. That's also the secret for people who haven't been on our webinars before. We do this thing where I always ask these questions and I act like I'm just thinking of it. And I'm like, oh, would it be possible to do X, Y, Z? And in the history of the 7 years we've been working together, Stacy has never once said no. The answer is always yes. It's always yes, no matter what. Stacy and Austen can figure it out. It might take them 10 minutes, but they always figure out a way to do it.
I have a quick question from the chat. Rita wants to know about how that's different from the donor category report. So I don't think the donor category report adds anything to the record. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think it just spits you out a list, which is helpful. But this actually adds something to the record so that you can query on it. If somebody asks you for today's deal, you can get it and you don't have to run that whole big report, especially if you have tons of donors. That report takes a long time to run. So.
Excellent. Great question. Keep them coming. Let's stick on the database administrator side of things and data cleanup, phone updater. Austen, I always think this is super cool because everybody struggles to keep phones clean and organized, especially as people move and you've got graduates who have cell phones and then they end up having business phones. I just want to highlight one of them, right? This cleaning up the cell phone thing, because I'm thinking here the example of high schools that are doing phone-a-thons, right? Which involves usually leaving a voicemail, because nobody answers their phone anymore, but it involves leaving a voicemail and then probably sending a follow-up text. For you to be able to do that, you need to know which numbers are cell phones, which ones are landlines. What is the automation you built and why is it the coolest thing ever?
So what it uses dynamic data that exists on a constituent record already. So it uses the primary address state and compares it against the home phone's area code. So we can see here the area codes for New York. Let's say this person lives in North Carolina. We can then deduce that their home phone is actually a cell phone.
Awesome. And then you change the record and mark it as
and then the automation takes care of the whole, like running it through and updating the phone type. And I think the best part about this is, and the whole list there, is it runs against every phone that was added that day, right? So it runs overnight and it's just churning through every time you add new data to your system.
So cool. Elizabeth Johnson, who's cleaning up phones right now, that one is for you. Stop doing what you're doing. Talk to Austen, get this one. Let automation do let the little elves do your cleanup for you. Okay, daily digest. Now we're getting into even more fun stuff. So automation can do amazing things on data health, right? Data cleanup, deceased records, and phone stuff, and constituent tagging and priorities, all that cool stuff. It can also do a whole bunch of amazing things which are forward facing, like emailing your donors and things like that. Now we're moving into that part of the world. Stacy, what is a daily digest? Let's talk about Wake Tech. What are we doing there from a daily digest perspective?
So this one is so cool. It's actually a complete pledges notification. So if a donor makes a gift that fulfills a pledge, we can send you the donor's name and their pledge amount and the pledge date into your email. So instead of having to go check every day or every week for, do we have any pledges that have been fulfilled? Because your president wants to call them or whatever it is, right, that you have to do. You could just send this email. You could have Automate Genius just send this email to your president's assistant, right? And then it's done, right? You don't have to do this 5-minute task every day or every week. It's just already there. So love it.
So we see this, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but in a lot of, again, K-12, higher ed, a lot of times the database administrators constantly getting asked for things, right? Like major gift officer wants to know who made a gift yesterday, who in my portfolio, who has a kid in the college I'm going to go visit, like just constantly the same reports over and over again. Database administrator goes nuts because they've shown them a million times how to pull it, but nobody ever goes into Razor's Edge.
Yep.
This is a way to bypass all that, right? Just to be like, I'm done fighting this battle. Like Stacy and I are done fighting the battle that our kids have to wear jackets and shorts. We're just going to let them. We've decided where the kids can
right?
figure it out. In Omaha's cold. You're going to be cold.
It really is.
Okay.
I mean,
So,
and I, as somebody, admittedly, right, who is a major gift officer at a university, like I went to the guy down the hall and said, "Hey, Mike, can you run me this report? Can you remember, and like by the time I left, he was bald because he like had pulled all of his hair out of his head. But I mean, in reality, it was like things that I didn't know how to do or didn't want to take the time to learn, right? But I definitely needed to be good at my job. And so if Mike can say, you know what, like let me just like serve this up to you, like then Mike can actually do the stuff that he needs to do that the machine can't necessarily do, more people facing stuff or deeper dive analytic reporting sorts of stuff.
so I'm thinking of, okay, donor Q just made a gift of whatever level, which puts them in the champion circle. That should kick a note to the athletic director or to the dean of arts and sciences or whatever that thing is, like, hey, send them a little personal note or something like that. So it could just be anyone outside of Razor's Edge, get them a note. Once you built this, so not just Wake Tech, but we've been doing this for tons of organizations, large and small. It always has led to the same spot. So you send them and it could be email, it could be in a Slack channel, but like just a daily digest stuff from Razor's Edge served up on a platter to them. And then they say, hey, could you link that to an action, right? Could you make that clickable? So Stacy, is that possible?
It is possible. So what we do now with some of these, if you want to make a phone call to all the people that completed their pledge or who have an opportunity due today or whatever it is, right? Then we add an action to the system with some notes that says, please call this donor to thank for the pledge. And it shows up in that digest. There's a link. So Andy or the gift officer clicks on it and it pops up this page in Razor's Edge. They click mark complete and add their notes and it's done, right? So instead of having to, go search for Ellen in the database and then add an action and click all of the 20 things you have to do to add an action, it's all done for you. He has to click 3 things and type what he said to her on the phone. It's so much less time and less effort and less brain power. So it's just way more likely to get your actions into Razor's Edge, right?
Which is what we all want, right? You need good, clean data. So let's just meet people where they live and serve it up on a platter, make it easy for them. Okay.
And it actually makes it into Razor's Edge because I'm telling you, I did a whole lot of stuff that was never accounted for in the old actions tab. Like probably still isn't accounted for.
It's still in a notebook somewhere, never made it in. So you can do, I mean, the sky's the limit. If you're at a college or university right now, think of all that you can do with this, right? So whatever reports you get asked for every day, whoever asked for them, customize it to them. And it could be like we've seen clients that want to get prompted. Hey, if somebody gave a gift above a certain level and they're not assigned a solicitor, not in somebody's portfolio, let's make that happen, right? Give me a link to assign them to somebody or automatically assign it. Send a note to a department head, right? Let me know if it's a first-time donor. All that stuff is there for the taking. This is the new world, guys. This is what fundraising used to be, a lot more boring and tedious than it is going to become in the next few years, because life is getting better because of automation. It was inevitable that once Stacy, you and Austen and the team started building out stuff like this, like these daily reports, and then, hey, yes, we can link it to an action, that somebody was going to say, hey, that's cool, that's great, you got me my daily list. What if, could you just write the email for me, right? Can we take it to that level? I'm a major gift officer. Do I really need to start every time with my own blank canvas? So this is the really cool thing that you guys built. Heartfelt emails, and it's used, I just pick on Regis and Springside because they do such a great job with it. But many colleges, universities, and big organizations like Field Museum and hospitals. Here's what I want to show everybody. Take a minute and scan this, because I'm going to give you a real life example of this, and it's way more impressive for you to get the actual sample because you're going to interact with it. So go to, and Mankey can do me a favor and drop that in the chat, easy.automategenius.edu. Yeah, you can click on the link or you can scan it, and you're going to put in your first name, your last name, and your work email, and you are going to get a sample, which is going to be the greatest thing that has happened to you all day long. So picture you are a development director or a major gift officer or the dean of the College of Pharmacy or whatever it might be, and you are going to get an email. So go in, take a minute, scan that QR code. I'll give you another 30 seconds here. Make sure it's working as I see any notices to make sure it's all flowing. So you go there, fill it out, first name, last name, put in your work email. You're going to get an email, and it's going to look like this. Okay. Boom. A real working email. It's going to come from me. I'll zoom in on it here. And the reason I wanted you to do this yourself is because you're going to want, the reason I wanted you to do this yourself is you're going to want this sample because you're going to want to be able to interact with it. When you look at that email on your phone, it's going to look like this. We have a bunch of fake names. These aren't real people. We operate out of probably the biggest sandbox anybody has inside of Razor's Edge. You're going to see a bunch of names and then a bunch of message prompts. I want to show you the magic of this email. Okay, so I'm going to go in here. Let's highlight. Let's look at John. And there's a little prompt that says President's Circle gift. I click on that, and you can click on it. And what's going to happen is it's going to open up the message that you're going to send to John as a draft that you can edit in whatever system you're using. This is the beauty of it, right? You're a major gift officer. You're not going and living in Razor's Edge and then pulling a query and then typing something out. That's not how anybody works. What you're doing as a major gift officer is getting this list of links and saying, oh yeah, John made a gift. He's in the President's Circle. You click on it and it drafts it for you in Outlook or Gmail or Thunderbird or whatever it is you're using for your email provider. And you can go in and edit it. You can change it. You can say, maybe he doesn't go by John, he goes by Jimbo, whatever it is. Maybe you just saw him yesterday at the grocery store and you want to say, hey, it was good seeing you while we were looking for pineapples. Whatever the heck it is, you can adjust it on your own. You can send it, you can not send it. It's just serving it up on a platter. Andy Schrader, is this something that colleges and universities tend to enjoy?
Colleges and universities, and I know we have some high schools on here too. One of the things I want to point out, like, obviously, the example you showed was in an Outlook format. Most of our K-12 clients use Gmail or the G Suite. So yes, just because we're showing you an example in Outlook doesn't mean that it can't translate to Gmail, because it absolutely does and it absolutely can. But yeah, I mean, it's wild. And really the conditions, the message prompts, we gave some examples there, but it's essentially we can create a message prompt or a condition that will allow you to recognize parent donors or first-time donors or a young alum, however you want us to notify you that somebody did something that triggered you wanting to know that, and then creating a message to kind of align with what that does, we can do. And we challenge you to challenge us.
Yes. I was talking to somebody the other day and they're like, oh my, it was where advancement and admissions were under the same umbrella, right? And they're like, kids come on tours from high schools, right? And then I want to, after that tour is complete, that data goes and gets entered somewhere. Like we could trigger a message that comes from the real student that led the tour, that because you can't trust a student or anyone to write a good email on their own, right? You got to give a template for them. Like you could just give them that, hey, by the way, click on this and you can send an email to the person. They don't need to go log in anywhere. You don't need to copy and paste anything. I also want to highlight so this is earth-shattering stuff, truly. Like it will change the way that you operate from a fundraising office. But none of this is new thinking, right? I want to make sure we're taking credit for the right things. There's not a single person on this call that doesn't already know that you would be better off if you connected with your donors in a meaningful way, right? That if you had all the time in the world, you would start your day by kicking a personal heartfelt note to all the new donors that came in the night before. Everybody knows that that would be meaningful. It's just that nobody has time to do it, and it's a burden to do it. Everybody knows it would be really cool if every time somebody made their 20th gift to your high school, they got a note that said, hey, it was the 20th time you've given, but no one would have any ability to do that. Stacy, you would have to log into Razor's Edge, run a query, count the number of gifts, see if that person, has an email on file, like all that stuff. And by then it's noon. So we're not inventing any new ideas. We're just making it so that 95% of what you already know that you should do, we can automate it and serve it up for you on a platter. And that is the miracle of what's happening here.
Nick,
Okay.
before we jump on, I did see there are a few questions that people kind of had as follow-ups to this. So
Yeah.
you can kind of tackle them real quick. So in terms of, who is entering the message prompts, that is a situation where you at the organization, we will work with you. We can kind of give you some templates, but we want to encourage each individual sender, right? So if I'm a major gift officer, if Austin's a major gift officer, and we're both sending the first time donor email, Austen and I, both amazing people, right? Charming, good looking, but we talk kind of in a different voice, right? So what I say to a first-time donor and what Austen says to a first-time donor are different. I'm going to be able to edit my unique message prompts. So I'm going to kind of pre-program in and say, when I click that first-time donor button, this is what I want the email to kind of generate out for me. Austen will be able to do the same for her. And that might work for a while. And then seasonally, we might say, hey, you know what? It's homecoming coming up. Like, we want to change the message to include some blurb about homecoming. So we can log back into the app, tweak the message to kind of make that decision about homecoming, and then that becomes kind of our new message prompt. So that's a big thing. The other question was, where are the messages logged when they're sent? And so from that standpoint, once I send it, it's obviously, if I'm sending it from Outlook, it's going to show up in my sent email from Outlook, or my sent email, it's going to show up in my sent Gmail messages. But we can actually record kind of that message prompt draft and put that in the Razor's Edge record for the individual person. So to put it in there, some organizations want us to put it in there and mark it complete. Some organizations want us to put it in there and not necessarily mark it complete and leave it up to the gift officer to go in there and kind of mark it complete or sent after they physically have sent the email. I think that
you nailed it. Yep. Sheila's question is, who's doing the message prompt? It's you. We work with a ton of organizations, so we can bring suggestions, say, hey, based on what I'm hearing, you should probably have these 3 or 4 messages for sure because they're meaningful, but you might have your own ideas, which is great and what we want, and we can generally make it happen, right? We can bridge that gap between data getting entered into Razor's Edge or Blackbaud CRM or AllTrue, whatever it is, and then take that, and because of that, it triggers an action, which could be an email in many cases, drafted from the right person. Okay, that is what automation can do. It's super cool. Let's talk more. Here's another one. I think, Andy, you were the one saying this is a big deal to a lot of colleges and universities, right?
Or positive. So we talked about this, and I'll let Stacy and Austen talk about it. But for those of you who are, at colleges and universities and are getting ready as May starts to roll around and graduation happens, where you're moving them from a student database, maybe Slate, Colleague, something like that, into Razor's Edge now for the first time. Or even within, you might be at a high school, you're going from Power School into Razor's Edge for the first time. It's getting that data from a non-native kind of Razor's Edge platform into that system, and how to be able to match those donors up, or match those potential donors up, students up, whatever, so that you're not creating duplicate records. Stacy, take it away.
Well, I just want to send a quick shout out to my peeps at Benedictine College who are on the call today, because I used to do this back when I worked there. And that is a crazy job, getting the registrar stuff into Razor's Edge after graduation. No fun at all. But what the magic folder does is it takes some CSV or some outside data source of some kind, and you basically drop it in a folder that we designate, and then the automation says, hey, there's a new file, and it goes and looks all these people up in Razor's Edge. It does the same thing you would do if you were just sitting at Razor's Edge typing away names, addresses, phones, emails, whatever. And then it gives you an output that is kind of whatever you need, right, to do an import. So if we find no matches in the system on any of those things, it can create a file for you that's ready to import, and it has the columns for phone type and the columns for this and that and the other. If it finds a match, it can actually add the Razor's Edge ID to your file. So now you know, oh, this person is a student volunteer for the phone-a-thon. So he already has a record. That's this guy right here, right? And we'll do different files if there's a bunch of matches, because somebody's name is David Johnson, or a different file if it's somebody that only found one match. So this is very customizable, and it takes away a bunch of the work. It keeps you from importing a lot of duplicate records. Just saves you tons and tons of time and headaches.
What would young Stacy have thought about this as you're going through all those lists from the registrar?
Yeah, I would not have believed you. No way.
If you wouldn't have had a work study job, it would have been eliminated.
I guess we don't need you anymore, Stacy.
Another use case, and I'm guessing I'm going to take a shot in the dark here and say that the majority of the people on the call do some sort of a gala or other fundraiser, an auction, a golf outing, right? Where you're probably not running that through an event, through the event, right? You're using OneCause, you're using VidPay, you're using something like that, right? Where you have to get that, again, outside information back into your database of record, like Blackbaud, whatever your CRM. This again is going to take the opportunity to match those things in there so that you're not having to key everything in one by one, or import it and not sure if it's mapped to the appropriate field. It really is intended to help you kind of import things back in and get them not just in, but in and where they need to go.
Super cool. We believe, and on that example, like we have had people say, hey, that's going to put me out of a job. Like, I mean, in the same way that, yeah, your job, everybody that we've ever met is competent and they're good at what they do. And they're being ground down because they're smart and they're capable and they have brains between their ears. And then they're spending 10 hours a day going line by line through Excel, making notes and then typing things in. Like, you don't need to life doesn't need to be like that anymore. You can use automation to help you get rid of the grimy part of your job, the grind, and just automate it so that you can use all of your brain power to do more fulfilling things. That is a more rewarding job. You could do more prospect research. You could finally get to the campaign fund appeal structure that you've been wanting to renovate forever. You can work on the dashboard. You can move on to automating other things. So I do want to be clear, like there's cost savings galore on the data side of things, but it's not to eliminate positions. It's to help you have a job that is more worthy of what you've been created with, which is with a brain and free will and all the things that you should use to find fulfillment in life. Okay, off my soapbox. One more really big one, right, for colleges, universities, okay? Here we go. Gift acknowledgements. I want to talk, Austen, I think this is you. Let's talk about NC Central, North Carolina University, right? What are we doing for them that we're doing for everybody else? This is a big deal.
Yeah, so they're, as with all acknowledgements, it tends to be a little bit complicated, right? But what we're able to do is take what they're doing now and expand upon it, right? So we can take care of sort of the preemptive work that they're doing to determine which letter is going to be used in which circumstance. Oh, it's over $25,000. The chancellor needs to sign that one. And we can also take a look at their data to make sure that it's clean and ready to be used in the merge process, right? Like if someone's missing an addressee salutation, maybe we can't fix that, but we can let them know, like serve that up on a platter. Some of the more minor things we can go ahead and fix automatically. And then best of all, this just happens in the background. And when it's done, they just get a notification that says, hey, your letters are ready to go.
Which is crazy, right? I mean, so I'm thinking like just college universities, the gifts you have coming in, so gifts made, it's to the pharmacy school, right? Or it's to arts and sciences, or it's to the, endowment fund or the athletics or something. And the letter that goes out depends on what that is. And the person that signs it will depend on whether it's a big gift or a small gift. All of those things in that giant decision tree, you're saying that you can automate that, right? The gift comes in and you can decide, is this athletics letterhead or college letterhead, right?
Yes.
And then
take it one step further too, to say, oh, these are the gifts for the College of Arts and Sciences. They should be routed to the Dean of Arts and Sciences so he can sign them first.
Or his assistant, who's the one who clicks print, yeah, and then he signs it as he's walking by. Like all of that is possible, and it just happens as gifts come in.
Yes.
Oh man, that is a big deal. And so, and then, sorry, this example before I move on from the slide. So then your job now is just, as you're sitting there, like instead of doing that grind and that paperwork, you let the automation work, and then you get an alert that says, hey, your letters are ready, or the letters are ready for the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences or the pharmacy school or whatever. Those get routed, and you just look them over, review them, and off you go.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Okay. There's a lot of people whose minds are blowing right now, are getting blown, are already blown. Gifts, acknowledgements, you can do three things, right? So talk to us about this. This is what you're saying before about like emails and letters. Like So the gift comes in, you're deciding what letterhead and who the signer is and everything else. What are the things that you can do at that point?
So we can take a look at the donor's record, and if they have a valid email, right, then we can go ahead and send their acknowledgement letter out via email. The cool part about this is it doesn't necessarily have to be an automatic email. So if you want, say it's a major gift, right? You want to add a personal note to the email that's going out, or you want the email to come from the chancellor's office. We have the ability to draft that email and either put the letter as an attachment or put it directly within the body of the email itself.
Low-level gifts come out from donor services, 10,000 up, and get a little heartfelt note from the president, him or herself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so cool. Okay. So, and then you mentioned the letters, right? So you can create those.
Yes, so you can do that in-house. And then if you have a high volume, right? Like it's just not sustainable to print 900 letters a week and mail them out. We have the ability to just create a data file that you can send to a print house.
Which is probably more common, right? Colleges, universities are probably doing this. Like I'm thinking phone-a-thon time or annual appeal time. It's just they're sending files over to the local print house.
I think the best part about all three of those options is you don't have to just pick one, right? So you can use a combination. If someone has a valid email, send them an email. If they don't, send them a letter through snail mail, right?
Okay. And the question that everyone in the world is typing right now and racing to get it in, can you save that documentation somewhere? Can you mark someone as acknowledged in Razor's Edge? How does that all work?
We can absolutely write back to the constituent record and the gift record. We can mark gifts as acknowledged. We can put attachments on, either a link back to the physical file, or we can upload a Word document into the gift record as well. We can put actions on constituent records to mark when an electronic email goes out, and all sorts of things. Anything you want to happen happens.
Truly anything you want. Okay. Andy, is it correct that, I mean, you work with most of the clients. Is it for college and university, this gift acknowledgement thing is a really big deal. And then the heartfelt emails, right? Like, obviously the data cleanup stuff, maybe it's all of it, but like, give us a perspective. Like, what are you hearing?
Yeah, I would say that probably the gift acknowledgements and heartfelt emails are the most popular. And I would say the gift acknowledgements, particularly if you have a smaller shop, is probably a bigger deal because like that person is likely doing gift acknowledgements and prospect research and like event management, like all the things, right? So to be able to take the gift acknowledgement piece off of his or her plate is a huge deal. It's also been a situation, and we've talked to some clients that are like, well, we only send gift acknowledgements out once a month because that's all we have time for, right? So not the golden rule of like 24 to 48 hours after like somebody makes a gift that you're acknowledging it, right? So for some clients that we've worked with, like it's really gotten them to the standard that they've always kind of like wanted to be at, but just like the reality was such that like they couldn't do all of the things. So the gift acknowledgement has really allowed them to shorten up the time frame in which it takes to actually acknowledge a donor. I think the heartfelt emails, if you have a major gift team or if like you're in campaign mode and you're trying to cultivate relationships, that is definitely an amazing way to do that. And to get, potentially low-level donors to mid-level donors, mid-level donors to major, donors, the heartfelt emails is kind of like oh man, I give to a lot of organizations and other organizations aren't sending me this kind of stuff. Like I must really be a big deal at, this place.
Right. And I mean, it's helpful. Automations are helpful to any organization. Like you see this stuff and you just nod. You're like, okay, I get it now. But the more complex your organization is, more departments, more signers, more letters, like the more valuable automation is going to be to you, right? Just the more complicated it is, you by definition, you're going to get more bang for the buck out of automation. I'm going to put, how do you get started with automation? Great question. So here's the role that we play, and we're pretty open book about this. And I'm just going to actually do this as a poll as well in case people want to tackle it that way. Everything we've shared so far are automations that we've built, right? Some of them we built using Power Automate. That's how we started. Some of it we moved beyond that and we just go directly through the Sky API and we built like the heartfelt emails app because people wanted more. If you want to do automation, options are, Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong here, you can self-taught. You can go down the rabbit hole of this is really cool. I'm going to teach myself. I want to learn Power Automate. I'm going to learn maybe a little Power BI. If you're going that route, there's community forums, there's probably YouTube videos, there's trainings, there's stuff out there. Stacy, is that right?
Yep, check out the Blackbaud community. There's a Microsoft Power Platform forum that is really active and really, really great. Blackbaud's even put out some training materials in Blackbaud University for Power Platform, which is really, really cool. So if you are into this stuff, definitely go check it out and play around.
So
there are people on this call, Nick, and I know because I found out this morning when I was at my alma mater and found out that she has been coming to our webinars, taking some of these ideas and, you know, kind of grinding out. But Sarah, I'm shouting at you out right now. She's been able to take this and really start to try to test and build some of those daily digests and, you know, start out with the simple stuff and kind of, you know, pack it on from there.
So that's an option. If you look at this and you looked at like that, I only had it on the screen for a little bit, but that flow chart, and you're like, this is my jam. I am wired this way. I want to take our gift acknowledgement process and draw it out on a whiteboard. Like, teach yourself. That's awesome. If you look at that and you're like, either, oh, that gives me the heebie-jeebies, this is not built for me, or I would love that, but I have too much stuff going on, I can't do this. That's where we can come into play for you. So we can either build all of your automations, right? You're like, hey, here's all our, and we're doing that daily, right? Andy Menke and Andy Schrader take those calls every single day. Tell us what you need. We'll get you in the queue. We'll build your automations for you. It's great. It's a good partnership. We can do with that, or we can just build your first one, right? If you're somewhere in between, you're like, all right, I love the concepts. I think eventually I'll have time to do this, but I just need that first one. I need you to build me the heartfelt email thing that's going to blow the minds of our major gift officers. Let's start there. Let me watch you build it. Let me own it and take care of it. And then I might be able to jump on from there. That's good too. Like, we're agnostic in all this. We just know that this is going to be an absolute game changer for your organization. We love doing it. Our team is really stinking good at it. So it's rewarding. Reach out. Andrew Mankey, if they go to that QR code, they can just schedule a conversation, right? I wouldn't even call it a demo. It's just a conversation about how it works.
Yeah, we just call it an informational meeting. So we'll get to meet you and your team. So bring your team along too. So if they haven't seen this webinar or they don't get the recording, bring them along. We can talk through all these automations, bring in Austen and Stacy if we need to get into the weeds. But yeah, fill up my calendar next week.
If there's any spots left already. What is this Creighton thing that everybody's talking about, Andrew Mankey? Why should they call you now?
Oh, because we do this annually, so we have a Creighton promo discount.
Because Creighton's the best, right?
Yeah, because Creighton's the best, and I think all the UConn people have left the webinar.
Good.
So we right now we're offering 10% off all the startup fees. So let me know by April 30th if you want in. And again, you can schedule a call with me. We can talk through things, but April 30th is the deadline.
So it's good and bad. So Creighton, we do this every game that Creighton wins, we offer more and more of a discount on anything that we're doing. It's heartbreaking to see Creighton lose in the second round, but also as a business owner, it was also a bit of a relief that because those discounts get pretty spicy. Some year they're going to win the tournament truly, and we are all going to be out of a job because we will have overpromised free services to everyone on earth. So.
I met with a client today, Nick, and Stacy, you were on that call too. She said, I've never watched March Madness before, but she came to the demo last week. She knew that the discount was a thing. So she's like, I watched my first ever March Madness game and I was really devastated when Creighton lost to Auburn. Like, you know, she was like, I really hope for a bigger discount.
I picture all these DBAs and face paint sitting on the couch, just going nuts, watching a team from Omaha. Like, I love it.
Wild Wings all over their shirt. Yeah. Yes.
I love it. Okay, so let's do, I'm going to turn off my screen. Let's do Q&A. I have not looked at it at all, so maybe somebody feel free. If somebody's got some questions that you want to start with, go ahead and dive in here.
I think there were some in the chat that we missed, so I wanted to go back to those really quick before I lose them.
Yeah.
When we were talking about heartfelt emails, Rita asked, is there a way to make sure the same donor doesn't get the same email text for multiple gifts over a year or whatever time? Yes. We've definitely thought of that, and we can set up those rules kind of however you want. You can also control that by making sure that people are updating their text every month or every how often, right? So that you can send them another email in a month if they are monthly donors. So lots of ways around that, but yes. Kelly asked, where are the sent messages logged in your personal email or back in Razor's Edge? I think, did we talk about that? I can't remember now.
A little bit,
we can add actions, we can add attributes. So there's some options for that too. And Tracy asked, is the distribution list based on who is identified as the primary solicitor? Again, this depends on what you need in your organization. So we often do that based on solicitor, but it also might be based on gift amount or fund of the gift, or, you know, kind of whatever your rules are. So sky's the limit.
If it's in, but what is the only limitation on all this that we have to say all the time, Stacy? It has to be in your database, right?
Has to be in Razor's Edge. If it's not in Razor's Edge, maybe we probably can't do it.
That's if it's in there, they can find a way to get to it and trigger something off of it. Be the one. I like what Andy said earlier. Be the one to stump us, right? Come up with some automation and try and stump the team. But I guarantee you, if it's inside of Razor's Edge, we can find a way to do what you want to do and trigger the automation.
I'm seeing Rosalind has a question, which is probably still fresh for some of you. If you want to work with us for end of the year tax statement. So we talked largely about like the gift acknowledgements being like, hey, gift comes in, we're going to acknowledge it right away. We actually have partnered with the organizations to do all of your consolidated receipts, right? So the first week of January, we look at all the gifts that happened over the course of the last year in your database and can determine who needs a letter, who gets what letter, is it a detailed letter, is it a summary letter, to be able to do that. In relation to her question, it would be bad if you waited until like the December 15th to say, hey, we'd really like that tax, acknowledgement thing. That can you spin that up for us in a couple weeks? So we're actually starting to work on that now to kind of get it set up so that you have the ability to run it in January. But honestly, if you can let us know probably before September, October timeframe, if that's something that you're looking to be able to utilize for next January and 26, early fall is probably going to be the best time to make sure that we can get it done and delivered for you.
There's another question in the chat that I just want to make sure that we address. Tracy asks if we can do automations for issuing charitable tax receipts in Canada. And the answer is yes, we can do that.
Canada, baby.
Let's go.
Prestige worldwide.
Our friends up north, welcome. You know what? I've learned there must be a huge market. Like it's like 30% of our webinar attendees and like the folks, like it's got big penetration up there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, excellent. Question. Thank you for the shout out for the who was it? Somebody, yeah, Elizabeth apologized about the Creighton women. Yes, that was also very painful. Thank you, Elizabeth, for feeling bad about that win for South Carolina. Mark asked a question, given thought about doing integrations, automation between Blackbaud Awards Management, RENXT. I can speak maybe for the firm. There are 10,000 Razor's Edge users out there, right? And we're working hard to get to everybody that wants automation. Like we have a pretty full plate of just doing this here. We get asked all the time, are you going to do this for Salesforce? Are you going to do this for other Blackbaud products? Yes, when there's something compelling and we can do it, we will do it. I just don't want to overpromise. Like we came into this because we know more. I'm going to be very candid. The team on this call and at PSG knows more about Razor's Edge than the people that are answering the phone at Blackbaud right now. Like they just, we're Razor's Edge first and then sort of developers second. And that's how we can, so we know who we are. We didn't come into this just looking to build automations for every product on earth. So I just want to stay true to what we know really well, which is Razor's Edge. So the answer is a definite maybe. Let's talk. If there's something really compelling that you have, we can look at it. Question. Sorry, Andy or Stacy, did you see others in there that we want to tackle in the Q&A or in the chat?
In the Q&A, Kathy's asking if the Giving Circle auto updater could work in the membership tab instead of custom fields. We got questions about memberships yesterday. We have not done anything with that yet, but I suspect that we could, yes. So give us a call. We'll play with it. There are some API endpoints for the membership, so I think that should be possible.
And if there's a third party, so we talked about the Magic Folder, and I took some slides out just for the interest of time today. Magic Folder, remember, is where you have an Excel file from BidPal or OneCause or whatever it is, or the registrar, and you're dragging it over to have it search Razor's Edge for matches and things like that. If that third-party software has an API connection, it's possible we can do that even within WebView, right? Have an API serve it up as a tile and say, okay, one by one, let's go through the matches here live without even having to deal with the spreadsheet. Again, that's when you should reach out, schedule a one-on-one call, and we can kind of talk it through. There's lots of different ways to skin the cat here.
We have a question about emailing. Can you email to both the head of household and the spouse, or do they have to have separate records? No, they don't. We can get to sort of any information that lives in Razor's Edge and utilize it in any way that matches your standard.
Fantastic. Others out there, and I apologize, I'm on a tiny screen, so I can't see all the things. So I want
to answer the constituent code hierarchy question that Rob has out there.
Yeah, so he asked for way back with the reordering constituent codes, can that happen automatically, or does it just point out the incorrect ones? It happens automatically. It can happen either from the order that you have in the table, in the actual constituent code table in Razor's Edge, or we can have an external list where you've listed out the hierarchy you want it to be in.
Excellent. Well said. Okay, team, I'm going to be judicious with everybody's time today. Takeaways. Number one, look for the recording and everything probably tomorrow with the slides. Number two, take that example email that you grabbed and show it to your coworkers, show it to your development directors, your major gift officers, your VPs of advancement. Say, hey, would you appreciate getting something like this in the morning that you can just click and it's going to write the email for you. It's going to absolutely make them go bonkers. For follow-up, you can reach out to us. If you answered the poll that you want to learn more, Andrew Mankey will be reaching out to you. We'd love to talk. We'd love to talk with every Razor's Edge user and figure out what you got going on, find out if there's ways we can help, we will. If there's not, then we're happy to point you in the right direction if there's somewhere else. But we just love what we do. Finally, on the screen, that's our newsletter. So if you like this sort of thing and you like learning new stuff, sign up for the newsletter. We send it out. Mankey, how often do we send out our newsletter?
Monthly.
Monthly.
And we'll
Monthly,
send
you'll
out
get
webinar reminders as well.
Yep. So you'll get a notice of here's all the stuff we got cooking. Let's just make sure you don't miss a webinar. As always, if you can't be at a webinar, sign up and then you'll send the recording and slides afterwards. Appreciate all of you. This was great. Team, good job. We made it through 4 out of 4. It was a grind, but we did it. You got the best team in the world here. So everybody go enjoy lunch or an afternoon coffee or whatever it will be. And we will see you on our next live session. Thanks, everybody.